Hello, welcome to another EGX Digital talk. This one is going to be called, it was originally called the Marketing and Sales Value of Discord Metagames, but Pip and I have decided to call it Discord Metagames Marketing Community and Escape Rooms for an element of mystery there. So this is going to be a lowdown from myself, Natasha Yvette, and the wonderful Pip Hoskins, who is just below me.
Hi.
So let's get cracking, I suppose.
Sounds good.
So for the first slide, we have to do a bit of housekeeping, just so you know who we are. So I'm going to let Pip lead on this one.
Yep. Hi, I'm Pip Hoskins. That's me down there. I'm the marketing lead at No More Robots, so I do all of our marketing stuff from social media to, oh goodness, everything and beyond there. And that includes being the full-time Discord gremlin. So I'm the one that keeps all of our Discord metagames in shape now. I look after 7 games, including some you might have heard of, so Hypnospace Outlaw, Descenders, Not Tonight, all of that lot. And we've got a couple of secrets that I kind of wish I could tell you about, but I'm absolutely not allowed. And we've just announced a game called Tubestar, which is a top-down Western shooter that's actually excellent. It's super smooth, and you should go wishlist it, please. Thank you. It's very close to my heart. Also, this is my horse Siri. She's kind of lovely. I love her a lot. There you go. That's me. That's me. That's who I am. Tasha, I feel like Tasha's going to be much more sort of. You're much more professional and organized than me. I'm terrible.
Well, maybe. So I am Natasha Yvette. Hello. You can find me on Twitter if you're, insane. I'm at CPTN Beatrush. It's Captain Beatrush, but that was too many characters for most stuff. So what do I do? That's important. I am the community lead at Firefly Studios. If you are wondering what a community lead is, me too. It's kind of a combination of social media, PR, marketing, comms, bit of presenting, customer support, just basically a big mishmash of stuff. Plus, I manage the Discord metagame for our game on my own, pretty much. About Firefly Studios, we are mostly well known for the Stronghold PC series. So you might have heard of, Stronghold 1 through 3 or Stronghold Legends. At the moment, we also have an MMO running called Stronghold Kingdoms, and we're working on Romans Age of Caesar, which hopefully should be going into beta maybe this year or next. Who knows? And what's the next part? Oh, yes. I had to plug Stronghold Warlords before I forget. So yes, Stronghold Warlords coming out January 26, 2021. It's a cool game. Wishlist it. Get ready to besiege all your friends.
And is that Pepper?
Oh yes. Oh yeah, I forgot about the pictures.
Yeah.
Yes, there's me, and then there's the cat, my lovely cat Pepper. He'll probably jump across the keyboard at some point during this talk, I'm sure. Apologies in advance.
Oh, bless. Okay, so what we're hoping that you'll gain from this talk now, because you were the one that pitched it, I feel like this should be your kind of area, like what you think people will gain from it. Because I just want more people to role play with their communities on Discord, but you've actually got points set out. So over to you.
What we're hoping that you'll gain from this talk, but we want you to know what a Discord metagame actually is, because you may have heard the phrases running around on Twitter or whatever game dev blog that you peruse. And so you might be like, what the heck is this? So we'll be telling you what the heck it is. Also, we'll be telling you about how a metagame can actually benefit you, your company, your actual video game, from a community, marketing, and a sales point of view. I guess Pip and I will also be giving you our own experiences on running and making them. Pip has got a lot more experience than me. She's run quite a few various metagames at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum, though, because we've got too many now. Too many.
And we'll also be giving you some tips and tricks on how to get started with them if you are insane and you do want to make one. And there'll be, of course, the odd cat and or horse picture professional.
We're really great at this. So yeah, let's jump straight in. What is a Discord metagame? So we're kind of assuming that you're all familiar with Discord. If you're not, please go look it up. It's such an amazing tool for community building. But a Discord metagame is a text or image based game that takes place in a Discord server. The idea is that you have a community of either the role players or people who are interested in your game, in your setting, and you update them every so often to bring them along on an adventure with you. You can do that with things like Discord bots, narrative writing, which is probably the bit that I do the most. Art, I'm no good at art, but I know Tasha's got like some amazing art that I've managed to put in. Like this one, this is great. Mini games and puzzles. I love writing puzzles. I could write puzzles all day. I adore that kind of thing. So there's so much that you can put into running your game and keeping your community engaged with that. Putting your video game's elements and themes into it, and even sort of assets before you've even got a finished video game is a really great way to market your video game nice and early. It's a really great way of familiarizing your player base and your potential player base with what they're going to encounter if and when they buy the game. To that end, it should probably only feature assets and visuals and theme from your video game, but if you do need to borrow from elsewhere, it's not such a huge thing, and we'll talk about sort of plot and things like that later on, but it should primarily be sort of tied to your video game to a point where they will understand your game once they start playing. And the more of that video game stuff you can cram into your metagame, the better. So you're looking at engaging with your players every so often, be it every day or 3 times a week, twice a week, once a week, whatever it happens to be, and bombarding them with nice stuff for them to interact with that's based on your game so that they can kind of get to know it a bit better, which is, great for everybody.
So I suppose at this point you may be thinking, okay, well, it sounds interesting enough, but what's the point? What am I really going to get out of this? So, I mean, you can just market your game through, social media, all the other things, YouTube, whatever it is that you do. That's completely, valuable as well. I think the real value in metagames comes from the community point of view. So you're going to be engaging and, as we said, familiarizing, it's a really hard word, your community with your video game without even having a finished game ready yet. You can introduce characters, you can build all this hype with themes and settings, visuals, even mechanics you can introduce by using puzzles or other narrative tools to put these things in there. It means that when you put these things into the metagame, you're going to have more of a hype for the actual reveals for them later down the line. So, for example, if you're introducing like a side character, and they're not important to the actual video game that you're making whatsoever. They're so minor, it's not a big deal. But you put them in the video game, it's going to be such a lovely cameo for later on when people start playing the actual video game. They'll be like, oh, hey, that's Sarah. Like we were interacting with her in the metagame. Oh, sorry, just knocking my headphones out there. So, and to that point as well, you're going to be able to regularly deliver and nurture a community with the game and game elements without waiting for these big marketing beats. So a lot of game devs will just sit on their game and wait for a big trailer or the next main character reveal or a digital event or something like that, which means there's just a lot of dead space in between what's happening with the game. So by using a metagame, you can introduce all these little teeny-weeny things that you're doing and making that will further the hype and just keep people talking and being interested in what's going on. And that leads me to my next point as well. I've got to remember to breathe. It's important to avoid a dead Discord server. I mean, what's the first thing you do when you join a new Discord? You mute it, right? I mean, that's what I do. Maybe I'm just really, introverted. But I mean, almost everyone I know mutes the new Discord server because otherwise you get tons and tons of alerts and notifications, and people can be really antsy about that kind of stuff. So having a metagame and these regular updates, whether they be narrative, puzzles, art, whichever, it gives people something to talk about, keeps people active, keeps the conversation, the hype flowing in the run up to the release, which is super valuable, because that in turn means that come day one, you have built this amazing active community of engaged players that are looking to help you come day one. They're ready to buy. They're ready to review, and they're ready to support other players who are coming in, because you'll get a big influx of new players come launch, and new people joining your Discord. They're already active. They know each other's personalities, and it's just a very invaluable thing to have, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big thing as well, because that big influx of players helping other players and being ready on day one is there to help you then appease the almighty Steam algorithm. Now, I know that's a bit of a sentence. Basically, the more people look at your game on Steam, the more people Steam allow to look at your game. And if you are launching on Steam specifically, I can't really talk for console stuff because we've only just started doing that, but for Steam, even appearing in the search when you type is tied to how many people have looked at your game at any particular time. So we were really lucky with Yes Your Grace that we hit the global top sellers list, and then suddenly our sales spiked like crazy. And we kind of sat down and thought, okay, well, why is that? And we looked back at the Discord metagame and we looked at the amount of people who had been supporting us through that, and we can kind of attribute quite a big amount of it to that. Before we'd even launched, we had testers on board and we had feedback on board. We had people who we could trust throughout the community, who we'd spoken to extensively throughout the community, and who we'd sort of floated ideas with. We also then had our sort of street squad, and I think street squad maybe dates me a little bit because I was part of the My Chemical Romance street squad years and years and years ago. But the idea is that we have people who are constantly telling their friends about the game, so their friends are then searching up the game. We have them wishlisting the game and asking other people outside of our social reach and outside of our Discord reach to wishlist the game. So putting together this sort of street squad, even not asking them to do so, but kind of, nudging them in that direction was super, super crucial, because it meant on day one, we had a bunch of players who bought the game immediately, pushing it further up the charts. We had people reviewing the game, even people who'd been testing it internally with us, so that when people looked at the game on day one, they're like, oh man, this dude says it's actually really good. Excellent. We've got people who are talking about the game, so again, not keeping a dead Discord. We've got people who are chatting on social media and in other Discords with their friends who are sharing our announcements to their servers and things like that. And we've got support for new players and bug fixing. So by putting up a bug fixing channel and saying, hey guys, we're all going to bed now. If you guys are awake, can you make sure that people know that the pins are there? And suddenly we wake up in the morning and instead of, oh my goodness, our forums are on fire, we've got players going, don't worry about it. We hope you had a good sleep. Don't you worry about it. This guy's got a problem with this, but we've put him in the direction of the pins. This guy's got a problem with this, but we've told him to email you, so have a look for the... And it's incredible. It's the nicest thing, honestly, that we have this launch, and we celebrate launches, but they're super stressful. And to have people actively in your corner is a massive, massive boost. So yeah, the point is community building to a point where they will support you through that day one launch and lift you a little bit throughout all that, and sort of keep engaging with your product as you go. Yeah.
Wasn't it even that for Descenders, you guys had a discount code and they refused to wait?
Yeah.
They were like just so happy to actually get into the game and play it.
Yeah, Descenders was one of the ones where it was the first one that we launched into early access and people could buy it with a discount, but Steam for some reason hadn't put the discount on. So the Descenders players were like, so, do you know how long we've been waiting to play it? It's time to go. We bought it already. And we're like, oh god, do you need a refund? Do you need we can get you Steam and they're going, no, we bought it now, thanks. We'll tell our friends. And it's super nice, right? That's super sweet. So yeah, definitely.
um, so with everything that we've told you so far, you might be thinking, okay, well, cool, I'm into it, kind of sold, but it probably just won't work for me. Um, I'm here to tell you that metagames are for everyone. I think that metagames are very applicable to very small teams where you're one or two man slash women, whatever, and to AAA studios. I think it's um, it's important that that everyone knows that they can try this out if they are so inclined. Um, so this is a very cheesy slide, so I apologize in advance. But so do you have a passion for games, community, and marketing work? That's important, to be honest, because metagames are a hard slog at times. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a lot of fun, but sometimes you will be thinking, oh, Jesus, you would just want to kind of give up a little bit, especially if they run long. But we'll come back to that. So you do need to have a passion for the game, for your community building, or just for your community in general, and just for marketing. Next point: do you have time in your work schedule to commit to a metagame? Also very important because again we will come back to this, but they can take a lot of time depending on how ambitious you are with it. They can also take only a small amount of time if that's the route that you choose to go down. Um, Next point is your studio making a game right now. Kind of important because that's what the whole metagame is based on. Um, and do you have a rough idea of release? That's important because you need to sort of know, how much time you're going to spend on it, if you're going to make like certain plot points running up to release, and so on and so forth. So if it's yes to all of these points, then yeah, absolutely, a metagame can be for you. Whether you're you know, uh, BioWare or whether you're, a tiny team. It can be for anyone, RTS to high fantasy, whatever you want. I think it's very applicable to everyone.
Okay.
Sorry, I got startled at that exact moment because a cat jumped in front of my window. It's not my cat.
Oh.
It just kind of put its paws in the window, and I was like, what the heck? So I'm sorry if it looked like I was very scared at one point there. I was just very distracted. um, right, sorry. Next point. What were we on?
When's the best time to start? So again,
Ah,
this is a you thing. This is not a me one. This is definitely a you one, and I'm so sorry.
no, that's fine. I think it's trial by error for me on this part. So when is the best time to start your metagame? So it depends on you, your team, and your imagination for sure. I think Pip and I were both, when we were discussing this, we sort of agreed that 3 to 4 months before launch, or a beta session or a demo or whatever is generally a good point to start. You don't be afraid to run more than one. So if you do a metagame up until your first beta or until your first demo, and then stop and then start again maybe another month down the line once you've used a month to collect all the feedback and grumbles and groans and so on. So absolutely you can run it in phases or whichever you prefer. You need to know how many assets that you have right now. When you think about how much stuff you have to show off and talk about in your metagame. And this is why the next point is also important. What's your communication like with the rest of the team? You need to have symbiosis. I don't know if that's just a thing for Venom and Spider-Man or whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. You need to be able to, talk to each other. You need to, as a marketer or a community manager or whoever you are deciding to run this metagame, you need to have good communication with the rest of the team to know, what's coming, what things you're allowed to talk about, which things are 100% decided and which ones are kind of wishy-washy. Because although there's a lot of, I was going to say a pinch of salt, a grain of salt, whatever, that you can use when it comes to making metagames. Ultimately, you want everything in the metagame to be relevant, or close to how your actual video game is going to be. So if you put in the metagame that you have this, like a bard or I don't know, something, a new system or something, and then people are like, oh well, I can't wait for this to be in the game, and then you're like, well, I made it up, it's not true. It's kind of what's the word I'm looking for, going backwards a little bit with the metagame. So yes, you need to have good communication with everyone on your team. Um, and the next point, it's really important to know that metagames are not like real life video game launches. You can take a break, you can pause it, you can run it in phases. Not only does this give you another opportunity at rebuilding hype for people who might have missed it the first time around, but it also means that your community can be a lot more forgiving with you when you're experimenting with things. Um, and I mean, for me at least, for the Stronghold metagame, it was really only supposed to last a few months. And by the time we release in January 2021, is going to have been running for over a year at that point, actually, and that's too long. That has been quite exhausting. Um, but on the flip side, it has meant that I've been able to stop and start, change things up. If one method of the metagame is getting boring, I switch it out and I change to a completely different plot, to a completely different character. Not a different setting, obviously the setting is the game setting. But you understand what I mean, I hope. That you can pull back whenever you like and re-experiment, and it's because it is ultimately a marketing tool. It just gives you more opportunity to talk about the metagame, talk about your game that's coming out, is what I meant to say.
Okay, so if you know kind of where you're at with time and things, who should be running it? And the answer is people like us, because we're marketing people, but that's not 100% true all of the time. You are also going to need help. You're going to need help from community managers if you have them, artists if you have access to those on your dev team, marketers who are external to you. Get them all involved. If you've got somebody who's really great at narrative arcs, pick their brain a little bit. Hey, if you were running a space western shooter where you've got two teams and no idea what to do with them, what would you get them to do first? There's it's definitely a team effort as you go forward. The most important thing, I think, and I know you agree with me here, the most important thing when you're setting up kind of how you go about writing it and making it happen, your design document is going to go a really, really long way. Your design document is your Bible. Please stick to it. No matter what it takes. With Hypnospace, for example, which is a 90s internet simulator that we launched, I had to reprogram my brain to stop saying lol and instead say bull, because bursting with laughter is the lol equivalent over in Hypnospace. And I now constantly, throughout posts, it doesn't matter what game I'm talking about, I constantly refer to lol as bull. But the design document, we went through, what the world feels like, what people say, what people do, what the world feels like, and that was really important in sort of building up my world into something credible for our player base to kind of latch onto. No matter who runs it, it's definitely a marketing tool though. So depending on your own skills and schedule and metagame ambition, you're going to want to ask for help from various members of your team. And please don't be afraid to ask for help from various members of your team. I can't draw anything ever, which is why you'll only ever see memes on here. I have I've got a brilliant piece of modified castle art from Yesha Grace where I was like, hey, can I have this but with the flags in purple and with the flags in blue and with the flags in red, please? And you'd be surprised how much people kind of want to get into it alongside you. The other thing is you will want to get somebody on board with you, or you'll want to learn how to use bots. So make sure you've got somebody on your little team who's tech savvy. I've put an embarrassing screenshot here from Tasha, and I feel bad putting it in, but I know I've got about 67 of exactly this same screenshot trying to work out how on earth the bots work. So don't worry if something feels a little bit outside your skill set. Go and grab some help from other members of your team, because one, it's really fun to learn new stuff together, and a lot of Discord bot stuff was new to us when we started. But secondly, I've learned so much about pixel art, and I've learned so much about the scary inner workings of Jay Tholin's brain that I don't think I ever want to let those things go now. So it's a nice experience all around. But circling back to my point, who should run it? Probably your marketer of some description. But please don't hesitate to get help in from everywhere else, because it makes it a more cohesive it makes it a more cohesive experience that makes sense to your players once they pick up your video game, which is ultimately one of your goals while you're running it.
And don't feel bad if you're a marketer and you're really more of a numbers marketer and you're looking at some of these images, or you've stocked a couple of metagames and you're thinking, I cannot write that. That is not for me.
You can.
Yeah, you can. It doesn't have to be half as complicated as, well, mine. I went full, David Cage, too many different plot points. I went a bit nutty with mine. It doesn't have to be like that at all. It can be very simple, short decisions, or it can be puzzle based like Pip has done before. And in terms of art, I'm sure Pip has included a picture in the presentation of her own art, which is definitely very different to how I asked our artist to do it for me. Because if we go back to slide 8, it's just the one before this one.
Yeah.
You can see that horrible paint image. That's my art. That's what I did to design doc my metagame. And you can see it's just you get one shot, you get, narrative, several plot points, decisions, so on and so forth. But all the beautiful art that I've shown is by our lovely artist Tom Ward. So yeah, don't think it's you have to do everything perfectly by yourself. Not true at all.
No. If any of my community are watching, by the way, yes, you lot are fixing your navigation modules soon, and that is what your map is going to look like. So don't think for a second that I'm not using MS Paint to draw your navigation modules and your maps, because that's what you're getting. If you don't have ready access to an artist that can help you, don't panic either, because I promise you, your communities are going to think whatever you do is awesome. Provided you are personable with them and you are open with them and you say, okay, imagination required, but this is what this looks like. I promise you, they will be there with you every step of the way. And you never know, some of them might draw stuff for you, which is also neat to include. Ish.
So let's jump on to the next one. How much time does it take? Good point. How much time does it take? Well, for me at least, it very much varied depending on how complicated the plot was. When I first started, it was a very simple narrative choice. You're here. Do you want to go north, east, or south? And then they would encounter something depending on what direction they went. But ultimately, it all kind of led back to the same point. That kind of update would take, depending on how inspired I was, 2 hours tops per week. As time has gone on and certain plot points were inspired by real life, Asian myths and legends, then it became a lot more complicated, and it took about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours a week. And then we ended up using a very complicated numbers economy market system that was actually mostly made by one of our community members, because he's like a game theory master. And that's what this little screenshot image is. I hope it's showing. Mm-hmm. If that kind of thing, you might look at that and think, that's terrifying. I'm not getting involved with this. The community will probably do it for you if they're that much hyped into it. You'd be surprised at what people will do once they're invested in a community, in a game, in a meta game especially. But if you are juggling a very full schedule, if you simply don't have a ton of time, but you still want to experiment with it, then by all means try it. No one needs 5 updates a week or anything like that. Just simply curb your ambition a little bit if you are juggling a lot already, is what I would say.
I always try and be super honest when I run these about how much time it takes. So my community are very understanding, because they know that we've got 7 odd games to juggle, and a couple of secrets. I do an update every day when we're running a meta, but, and it comes with a massive but. On busy days, so announcements, console releases, I have to upload a video that I haven't had chance to do all week, and now I have to scrape it together. I spend 30 minutes typing out a message to the two teams. You know, at the moment I've got them in space. Okay, well, your ship's crashing. You can save one piece of your ship. Let me know by 3 p.m. tomorrow what piece of the ship that is. And it asks them to engage, but I haven't had to worry about emojis. I haven't had to worry about art, anything like that. I'm just giving them a thing to do. And there are a lot of things, I think, when you step back and you think about it, there are a lot of things that you can fit in arcs that you can gem out a message in Grammarly in 30 minutes and pop it on in. I always feel super guilty about that. And I hate it. So I always make up for that guilt with an hour of puzzle making on other days. I really like running puzzles. I write ciphers for them, and I write riddles for them, and then I put those into spectrographs, and I hide images inside other images, and it's horrendous. And on those sorts of days, it'll take me about an hour. I recently come off a week where I was like, right, you get a puzzle every day this week. And they all love that sort of thing. But yeah, it takes a good hour plus each day to sort of make that happen.
Often, what's the word? Like you've got like creative block at all, or do you find it very easy to?
All the time. I'm really lucky. I play D&D on the weekends. You wouldn't believe how much I steal from that. I play a lot of escape rooms, especially escape rooms on Steam. I buy cheap Steam escape room games. I borrow some things from those, some sort of puzzle outlines from those. There is nothing stopping you Googling riddles for older children, changing some of the words and shipping them that. If that's all you can manage that day, that's totally fine. Again, I always feel guilt about it, but if you have that block, there are absolutely ways to look at what's going on and borrow from it. The other thing is, if you've got block, ask your developers what's new today.
Yeah, good point.
Ask your team, hey, sort of, what have you guys been working on this week? Because, I can't keep my brain in Descenders mode today. And they'll go, oh, we've been working on so-and-so. And you wouldn't believe, like, how freeing that can be to have something kind of new that they've been thinking about or working on to kind of draw from. So yeah, I also like to take one day a week just to have that extra hour just to work out what actually I'm going to be doing during the week. I feel like it settles my anxiety down a lot if I know roughly what day I'd like to do what sort of with, and where those guilt days are going to kind of take place. So yeah, I find that some days I spend way more time than everybody else who does metagames. And some days I feel like 10 minutes later and I've turned up and I'm like, okay, what did you decide? Okay, great, here we go. But it's about finding a balance for what you do and how that fits into your schedule. And as Tasha rightly says, sometimes you just need to curb your ambition a bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also lots of other things you can do that don't involve spending too much time in writing as well. Like if you want to do puzzles, you can think about children's games and then try to think about how they can become text-based games. You'd be surprised at how many of them actually work. Like, I think I managed to do like, what's the time, Mr. Wolf? Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. We've just done dueling, which is basically shout the word after I've shouted the word. It's super easy. You've got two people competing against each other, and they've got to say the word that you've just said. Easy peasy. That there's all sorts of things like that. The other one that I find is really quick, by the way, is jigsaws. Put into Paint, grab a screenshot from your game, type something over the top of it, break it up into tiny pieces, ship them that. Ta-da! You've given them a jigsaw, and you wouldn't believe how excited people my age and above get about doing jigsaws, whether a screenshot from a game. It's excellent. I love it. I live for that kind of energy. It's great fun.
So now that we've told you a little bit about how much time it could take you to manage a Discord metagame, you probably need to know what you need. So we've kind of talked a little bit about this throughout the presentation, but this should sum it up a little bit more neatly for you. So obviously, first of all, you need a Discord server. If you're completely unfamiliar with Discord, then you need to get very familiar with it very fast. It is fairly simple to use. I think maybe the first time I logged into it, I was a bit like, what is this? But if you've ever used, like, the chat rooms of ye old days, like IRC or TeamSpeak or whatever we were using back then, you'll pick it up really fast. So I wouldn't worry if you feel like Discord is a little bit out of your depth. The next thing, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, you need a video game design doc. You'll need to pull as many elements from the design doc into the metagame as you can, but definitely make sure that you're allowed to talk about certain things before you talk about them. The next part is art, depending. As we've talked about before, Pip didn't need a ton of fancy art. I very much did. I loved the fancy art incorporated into my metagame. You're going to need, some assets to get you started, whether it's character art or a lot of the maps that we use in our game it's actually like the campaign map when you log into the game. As it's like an RTS game, you'd be like, oh, this is your base camp here, and this is the enemy camp there. So it's like, that sort of map is what we used. And therefore, that's already incorporated into the video game. Map is already in the metagame if people are familiar with it. I would say that visuals are quite valuable for us, especially because English is not going to be everyone's first language, or they're not going to be fluent in English. We have a lot of community members of German, Polish, Russian, and of course their English is very good. But if they haven't, started to learn or whatever, the visuals are very helpful for them to understand and still participate to some degree in the metagame and, cotton on to what's just, happening. You're going to need time, patience, and inspiration. That probably goes without saying, but, I needed a fourth point. So, and as I've mentioned, you need to incorporate new video game features and assets wherever possible. Again, I'm just going to highlight this for a fifth time. If you're allowed, make sure you're allowed. It's definitely not coming from experience. I did not bugger up and mention something that I shouldn't have. Nope, sorry, not me. Somebody else.
None of us have ever done that. We're all really perfect. Just so that you're all aware. Absolutely. It's actually worth, when you have your design doc, having a conversation and being like, okay, well, I know the game goes like this. What are you comfortable with us having as themes, and what places are you comfortable with us visiting, or that kind of thing? I think that's a really worthwhile discussion to have.
Be really prepared for a dev or a programmer to be like, oh.
Yeah. Be ready to adapt when they suddenly go, oh, no, don't mention this that's going on here, and you kind of have to scrap the message that you've just written and off you go again. Like, that's okay. That's okay. It's fine. Okay, so the question that we always get asked the very most is, how do I get people interested, and how do I get people kind of into doing it? And the easiest way is Discord incentives. 100%. Give these people something that they can't get elsewhere, that you're not putting on Twitter, that you're not putting on Instagram. Give them a compelling story. You're going to keep them there, in my case, every day or 3 times a week or once a week, whatever it is. Give them a reason to log back in and make it easy for them to interact with that story. I know Tasha does the same thing as me, where she uses reactions, and you can press a reaction to do a vote on whatever the post is, things like that. That is the easiest way for them to interact with what's going on. They haven't got to speak up if they're being a little bit shy. We have lots of shy community members who don't feel confident in presenting an argument for why we should go west, but they can click a button and they still feel part of it.
It's amazing how clicking a button is an incentive as well. Even metagames that I didn't even know anything about the game, I would still check it on Pips and be like, I'm a vote for this one. No idea what it was about. I was just like, ooh, I get to vote. And I was very familiar with Yes Your Grace before it was even released.
Yep, it's good stuff. You can see here, big sort of narrative, big sort of narrative blocks that introduce the world and things like that. Make it, they're interested in your game. They want to know more about your game. So give them some more about your game and make it something that they want to interact with. Advertising it before launching it is a definite must, unless you're doing what we do occasionally, which is, hello, here's a game announcement, come to the Discord. But if you know that you are allowed to say, you know, we're launching a Discord in X amount of time, really push that, sell that, you know, tell people that there's going to be a Discord and there's going to be a metagame in X amount of time and they can come join and they can come do, you know, make a big song and dance about it. There's a really interesting thing with marketing where if you're tired of tweeting about the same thing, you are the only person who's seen all those tweets. So don't panic, keep tweeting. All your tweets are never going to be seen by everybody. All of your social media messages and things are never going to be seen by everybody. So, you know, even if you feel it's a bit overkill and you're a bit bored of doing it, don't panic, keep pushing through that. A metagame promises exclusive looks into the game that they won't get from social posts. You know, update them on new stuff that's coming. Make them the first step to, you know, doing various bits and pieces. We do beta runs where you can get first access if you come to the Discord and you come and sign up with us. You can get news first if you come and sign up with us. Give them something there that they can't get elsewhere. And feed into their competitive natures once they're there. Once they're there, keep them there. Oh, hello, Pussycat. Once they're there, keep them there by, you know, we always put, you know, 2 teams, 3 teams, get them competing against each other right off the bat. The first thing that happened in Tombstar meta was that they shot each other out of the sky and crash landed onto some planets. You know, feed off that competitive nature to kind of hook people in. Is a great way of doing it. But yeah, don't stop shouting. Constantly shout loudly. If you get bored of it, don't panic. Keep shouting.
We also did something about competition, but we did it a little bit too literally, perhaps. So we, you know, you with bots you can collect coins. It's like a false economy, basically. And we said that the team with the most amount of coins would be the ones to get access to the beta, and nobody else would. Which, in retrospect, may be a little bit harsh. But it certainly worked. People were extremely active in the Discord. We were getting a lot of interaction with the choices, and people were talking about which, you know, steps to take in the metagame to make sure that they made the most successful decision, and therefore got the most amount of coins awarded to them. In the end, we did have it. You know, we took the winning team and we said, look, we need more feedback, so it's okay if we just give everyone it. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. So it really didn't make any difference at all in the end. But the competitive part of it definitely was a big incentive for people to join. It's nice for people to feel like they belong to something as well. People like being in teams and, you know, having a little rivalry going on. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so plots and ideas. Again, I've now done too many of these, so I'll have a chat about a couple of them. But please don't be afraid if you are a bit worried that your game's genre doesn't lend itself to what you might consider a metagame. So Tombstar, as I said earlier, go wish list it. It's great. It's I need to stop. It's a roguelike. So how do I run a successful metagame where they can just die and not it be the shortest thing in the history of ever? And I had a real crisis about this thing where I was like, I can't see a way that I can put dangers in front of them and they can die and it still fit within the Tombstar thing and they're all going to get upset at me. And I took a step back and sort of went, let them die. I think I'll let them die. And absolutely, I threatened them with death last week. I said, okay, well, you've been saved now, but if you come across these giant robots with giant laser guns and you just kind of put your floppy selves in front of them, it's really not going to go well without a plan. So, and they all suddenly went, oh my God, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you'll die. And they went, right, but we'll respawn, right? I'm like, yeah, but you'll definitely be behind the other team then if you've got to respawn halfway across the galaxy. And that was it. It had set my Discord on fire. They were all absolutely terrified of dying. So sometimes when you've got a problem like that, if you take a step back and you kind of think about it, it's not actually a problem. It's a little bit of a blessing in disguise. We've also done role-playing kings and queens. I learned that from role-playing British politics. If you can imagine my first ever community management job, and I'm dumped into a server, and Mike says, "Okay, we'll get to know them a bit. This is Prime Minister Jimbo and his cabinet, and this is King Kent, and basically they're all playing British politics. Have fun. Don't let them get carried away," because that was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But it worked, and we managed to keep a lid on it, and it worked just fine. Don't be afraid to run preludes to your video game. Tombstar is a prequel to actual Tombstar. You know, anything that just borrows assets from your game. Again, I can't get them to play a twin stick roguelike. There's no real way outside of being super tactical, which I didn't think was super fun. So instead, they're playing Risk in space, but with slightly permadeath. And it's bizarre, and it works because they've got the symbols. They understand who the gangs are. They know who the good guys are. They know who the bad guys are, and it just, you know, it kind of works. For Family Man, all we did really for a long while was give them emotes of all the characters. And then we introduced them bit by bit and told them a little bit about each character. And then when they played the beta, they were super shocked that they'd come across these characters and they were exactly how they'd been described. And oh my goodness, that's Lawrence, shoot him, etc. Think about what the hook of your game is, and then kind of build around that. And you'd be surprised what you can build around that with the right kind of attitude, be it a puzzle-minded attitude or a narrative attitude or a kind of mixture of both. And you get some really great memes out of it using character art, as you can see over there. My lot, the Grim Hearts, are currently working out whether they're building a map or building an engine, and they just can't decide. So we've used that now as the official symbol for Grim Hearts are indecisive and kind of useless, and it's great.
I would say try not to plot just too much. It depends, of course, on what you're doing. But for me, at least, whenever I plotted something, I think when I first started, I plotted like 2 months. 2 months worth of all these little sporadic, spidery decisions and things that could happen. And straight away, the community did something that I completely didn't expect, and it was just a highlight delete situation. All of it was out the window almost instantly. So always expect your community to do the unexpected, and also expect them to do the expected. It's a very useless point. I'm sorry,
No.
but what I mean is, whenever you give them, I would give them like maybe 3 or 4 what I thought were very difficult decisions. All 3 teams would always choose the same decision, and I was like, oh, I spent ages thinking about all these fun scenarios and things that you could do, and instead everyone picked the same thing. So that's one part. But also, if they make a decision and you don't think too much about it, then it just throws everything out the window that you've just plotted and planned and worked on. So don't be afraid to wing it to some extent. It may be quite intimidating to wing it when you're first starting out. So sure, when you first launch your metagame, by all means, plot out a month and just see how it goes. But I think you'd be surprised at how often you end up just tossing a whole ton of plot out the window.
The other thing is, alongside that, don't be afraid to use Rule of Cool, because it makes you look like the best community manager that they've ever come across. If they come to you with a plan that's entirely outside of what you decided, and they're like, hey, we're sorry to ask, but can we not blow these guys up, and can we instead try and be friends with them and do this, and also do this and this and this and this? If you say yes, you are now the best community manager. You're the best community manager that they've ever seen, because you're listening to them and going along with it, and that's kind of super. You know, that's super nice for them.
And they'll also come up with their own theories and ideas. If you've got like a mysterious old man and they're like, "Oh, I think this is the king," and you're like,
steal that.
Yeah,
yes.
He is the king. I planned that all along.
Absolutely. Okay, so we put together a really, really quick FAQ. We're not going to have time to super go through it right now, but have a screenshot of it, have a read of it. If you have any questions, please come and grab us. Everything feels kind of complicated when you first start, but I promise, once you get into it, you know, it's all really straightforward, and it's as straightforward as you ever want to make it to be. Thank you for listening to us. We super appreciate it, and we hope that now you all want to go and make your own Discord metagames.
You can also find a summary of basically most of this presentation on my Twitter. It's my pinned thread at the moment, so if you need to read anything else, please do go there. And yeah, thank you very much for watching and listening.